thank you so much for taking the time to talk about agentic security. One of the most common questions that we get is, why is agentic security different? It's something that I talk about every week. And I'm so excited to be joined by Ashley. He has so much experience kind of digging through this himself as a security leader. So Ashley, I'd love to give you just a minute to sort of introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into why agentic security is so different.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. So hi, I'm Ashley Pierre. I am currently the head of security, corporate security in Delivery DoorDash Vault, looking after security across all of our different countries and enterprises. So on the agentic security side, like AI security, especially for our type of business, is incredibly, I wouldn't say difficult, but because the business moves so quickly, actually trying to grapple down like what agentic security means is hard, and it's hard because the risk landscape changes probably weekly. What people want to do changes daily, but then you get really weird side quest requests from people saying, hey, I want to create my own Slack app that does this weird thing with Claude, or hey, I saw that Claude, you can now initiate a task from my mobile phone. I'd like to do that from the beach and get Claude to respond to my Slack messages. And you think, okay, like I'm more than happy to enable this, but actually trying to figure out how this works is interesting. So like from a security perspective, like I think why agentic security is just so interesting at the moment is you have to understand what it is, how it works, and how you're going to secure it.
100%. I think one of the most difficult things is trying to just dissect out some of the key definitions, because there's a lot of jargon soup when it comes to agentic security. So how do you define an agent is a common question that we get a lot. And I think once you get to that, then you sort of start to unpick a little bit more. So for us, the minimum viable definition is at least a reasoning model with a tool. So that typically in the market right now is a large language model that's able to reason an action. And then the tool that is sometimes an MCP, could be an API, could be a hard-coded tool, could be a SaaS connector, could be a skill, but essentially it lets the agent take a real-world action. And so essentially you're going from an LLM, which could just be a chat interface, so providing you content or providing you specific structural information, all the way over to something that can take action when prompted in other systems. How have you come to grips with the minimum characteristics of agentic security? Like, what were the things that helped you understand what is agentic security and how to start thinking about it?
For us, like we define an agent, very similar to you. Basically, it's like anything that can assume the identity of an an employee is basically what we're using as an agent. You could also extend it, say like anything that can assume the identity of anything else is what we define as an agent. What we're trying to do is we don't want to separate agents too far away from employees, because then you get into this really weird world where we're at the moment, where you almost have like employee security and then you have agentic security. And then people are like, oh, well, for the agentic security, I need completely separate tools and processes for them. And then employees need those tools and processes for them. But where we're getting to now is like those tools and processes are like almost the same, because agents are getting so good that you don't know if you're interfacing with a human or an agent. The previous example, right? Like we have people in the business now where their agents are talking back to people in Slack forums, and you don't know, like, I think I've got two people in my team who have, and the only difference between them is one, the picture is a bot and the picture is a human, but the bot person does respond in Slack channels to individuals. So for us, like an agent is basically just an extension of that human employee. And the security boundaries have become incredibly blurred. So like we call them like wave one, like in the wave one vendors, basically what people were concerned about with AI security or agentic security is data leaving. So data going from the perimeter or the boundary of the enterprise and going into models, going up to AI vendors. And I think it took about a year where people realized, actually, do we even care about that anymore? We're signing these enterprise agreements with all these model providers. So do we care that like that data is going into AI models? Then like came like the wave one, wave two, wave three vendors now, where we're at a place where actually the stuff that we care about is what are the AI agents doing, and do we even want them to be doing those things? And if they do things that we don't like or we don't allow or not within our with our policies, like how do we respond and react to those things? And I think that's where we're going to now. So less about the wave one, like protecting, like, hey, you can't use ChatGPT, or you can't use this, or you can't use that. It's like, hey, you use the AI tools that make your life easier, make your life better, but we're going to put guardrails and processes in place to make sure that the security policies that we spent years and years developing for humans now apply to the agents.
Yeah, and it's really important because agents are inherently semi-perimeterless to entirely perimeterless. Like the way that they're designed to operate is always cross-system. That's how they benefit you. That's how they're designed to amplify workflows. You know, when people talk about like agents providing a lot more labor and 10xing, you know, productivity and all of that, it's because of that interconnectivity. And it's the same general trend that you saw with people, right? Like the more you had share drives, the more people could collaborate, the more you saw increases in productivity rather than just a single person working on a single work stream. You started to kind of collaborate, swarm, and hive. And so agents are essentially doing the same thing, whether it's one agent or multiple agents, but they're in most cases inheriting the credentials or the permissions of the person who configured them or the users who have access to them. And then they're operating on their behalf, right? Like just what you're talking about. And so it's really different from kind of traditional security. And especially when we talk about how do we set up those security controls and how do we make sure that our systems are safe? With a traditional security approach, especially to humans, it was mostly about specific gated perimeter areas where we can sort of corral specific accesses or information. And we can say, okay, I know that I can't let you get to the internet, or I know that I can't let you get access to this application, or I know that I can't let you move this data from this system to this system. But agents are doing that all the time at machine speed by design. And so you have to sort of change your mindset on human security and traditional software security and how you're going to get those choke points into how do I make extended guardrails and also remediation so that wherever these agents are going, they sort of take the governance with them like a little rucksack, like they take the controls with them. So when you were talking about, you know, how you made that jump from trying to think about agent security totally differently to thinking about it as extended human security, but different from traditional. How did you come to that? Like, what were the things that helped you from an example perspective, or things that you heard that really just helped land that for you from a practical implementation perspective?
Yeah, so I think the big thing that we've realized now is like the non-deterministic element of like agents is massively underplayed. Like I think people mention it, but I think people actually really understand like how non-deterministic this is. So how I view agents is like, imagine a child being curious. Like this is literally what the LLMs are doing. Like you give them a task and say like, hey, go and do this thing, or go and perform this action, research this thing. And the LLM is naturally curious. It'll go, hey, well, I need to look at X, Y, and Z. So like, how am I going to look at X, Y, and Z? Like, how am I going to get that information? And it will just use every single tool available to it to find as much information as possible. So like that is the big mind shift change that we need to have, is say, okay, well, like you were talking about, like very much perimeter based, like do this, then that, like we expect this, I can block that. I can imagine from an agent perspective or a child's mind to say, hey, you can't access the internet through this normal channel. But the agent might say, but I can normally access it. But if I fail with that one, maybe if I tried like a curl command, or maybe if I tried doing it this way, like maybe I can get to that type of information. And like without that guardrails, like specifically to say, in the agent file, you can't access the internet through any of these means. Like it's just going to go and do it. So like that is the big mind shift change, is saying like LLMs, model providers, agent workflows, imagine them being a child. Or I think in some recent training documentation that I've produced is like, imagine your AI coding agent is the most basic junior engineer that is just exploring and discovering the world for the first time. Like that is the mindset you need to have. So imagine trying to create security for that person. So putting up a little ring around them is not going to work. So probably just climb over it. It's like, so how do you detect the climb over? And then once things start going wrong, like what's the processes and business controls that you're going to put in place?
Yeah, because they're goal orientated, right? Like they
Mm.
want to pursue a specific goal and achieve that goal. And also, all LLM systems are basically designed to reinforce your happiness. So they want you to
Yeah.
be satisfied with the outcome. And so sometimes it's almost like Occam's razor, where you're like, that was so simple. I had never thought that anyone would even try that because it's nonsensical, but it's so simple. That's a great way to achieve that goal. And so, you hear all the time about examples about, oh, they've dropped a database or they've gone through a completely separate repo to get this piece of code so that they could finish this job. But it's always so that they could finish this job. And
Yeah.
so you have to think, as you said, much more creatively. And it's all about context with agents. That's the thing that is going to be the difference maker in terms of how prepared you are to respond. And I think it's a really important point, especially around what you were talking about with, putting a ring fence around everything, because you have to kind of remold yourself into defense in depth, right? Like you can't expect that prompts will be perfect. You can't expect that agents will never access anything that they shouldn't. You have to plan for the LLM to do the worst thing and for the
Yeah.
agent to do something unexpected. And it's one of the most common fallacies actually is that you can kind of test it like traditional software. I can put it in a sandbox, I can test it for 6 months, and then once it doesn't do anything too crazy within that sandbox, it's ready for production. But that's not how these systems work. You could do a year of testing and you'd still potentially have something completely unexpected on day one than you did the whole time in the sandbox. And it's really changing your mindset toward more of the user mindset, like what you were
Yeah.
talking about. Like this is closer to a user than it is to traditional software. So, how do I start thinking about reinstating specific security controls or moving specific security controls so that I have protections in place? So, when you are implementing this in
Yeah.
your job, in your team, as you're educating your team, what are some of the things that you're talking about with your team that is like a starting point? So if you're talking to other security leaders, I asked you before we started, if you were talking to yourself 6 to 8 months ago, what would you have needed to hear? Like, what are the things
Yeah.
that someone can go and do, or like, what's a good starting point for most people?
I think this is the first time in the last like at least decade and a half where security controls like this are no longer confined to just security themselves. So I think the thing that we're seeing now is more business units are interested in what we're doing in AI security than ever before. So before it was just like, hey, you might get a stakeholder from the business side to say, hey, what are we doing about like malware? Like I've seen this thing called ransomware. Like, are you doing backups? And you go, yeah, we're doing backups. And they go, cool, thanks very much. Now you very much the conversations are different because you're getting business leaders saying, hey, I want to 10x our workforce, not through hiring more people, but everyone needs to be using 12,000 tokens, whatever. Like we need to be seeing our average token count. I want to use 1 billion tokens this month. Like that is the thing that you're getting from business leaders now. And then they go, yeah, we're going to use this many tokens, but I don't want the AI to do those things that I keep seeing. So like keep me involved. I want to know more and more and more. So you're having business leaders pushing you to tools. Then you have legal asking you, well, which AIs are we using in which countries? Because each jurisdiction has a different rule set. You then have governance and compliance asking you, hey, do we have a list of which agents are being used and how they're being used? You have HR asking you, so it's just you have every single type of traditional business unit is now interested in what's happening in this space. And security are now being the flag bearers to say, okay, these are our AI controls, these are our policies, these are the things that we're going to stand up for the business, and we're now having to educate other businesses, like how other business units, how these things work. So if we're going to start putting in like pre and post hooks, okay, well this is how a hook works, and this is the thing that it does, and this is why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And then you get like your developer experience team saying, oh, but every single hook you do means that it's another step in another loop. And I'm having to click apply when I just want one shot everything. So like you're having like the amount of stakeholders that we now have to interface is far greater than ever before. So if I was to speak to myself, not even a year ago, 6 months ago, I would say that this is one of the first times ever in industry where the way you speak to people in the business is massively different. People don't really care about technical controls. What they're caring about is, are you going to do something that's going to slow down the business? Because we want to move at 10x pace. So not 9x, 10x pace. So build security controls, but don't slow us down. So like I think the classic, a lot of people would have done this previously. Like you want to buy EDR. So you go out to your desktop teams and say, hey, we're going to slap this EDR agent on there. It may slow down the machine like 1 or 2%. And that's probably the end of the story. Like you might speak to a couple of other teams that's like run very specific things. You put some exceptions in place. That's it. Now, yeah, you can use Claude Code, but you have to use Claude Code in this very weird like container environment thing. That upsets everyone in the business. Everyone's upset by it. Everyone has an opinion. Someone says, hey, but I don't use Claude Code. I use Codex and I use this and I use Gemini. And it's like, okay. So you're having to build controls for so many different personas. So yeah, the advice I have is your stakeholder map is way wider, and also the persona map is incredibly difficult to understand. So like you think about your users in your estate, most organizations have like, oh yeah, well our risky users are the people that have access to privileged data. Not in the AI world. Your risky users are actually the people who probably don't even know the difference between like Llama and ChatGPT. They just know it's an AI agent. Like those are the risky users because they'll just use it and say, hey, I need to create a report for this thing. Here's a Jira API key that I found somewhere. Like those are your risky users, because they're getting pressure from their leadership to say, you need to be using tokens, you need to be using AI. Why are you not doing it? Like those are your risky users now. The people that have a little, it's always been the case, right? They have a little bit of knowledge to become incredibly dangerous. It's no longer your privileged users, because those people have been hounded for most of their career to be security minded, but the other people, they haven't. Like they've just been doing their own jobs, working in Excel, and now they've been told, here's ChatGPT, create some crazy application.
Yeah, and you also then have risky users in the form of agents. So
Yeah.
you have risky users in the form of the business trying to use AI. Actually, we talk to a lot of businesses now where they've made KPIs out of AI usage. So their performance is directly impacted by how much AI they're using in their jobs. And so then you move into the next layer, which is the agents themselves and how their decisions impact things. Because again, it's not a one-to-one relationship with a prompt like, hey, go do this. Oh, okay, I'll go do it. And then it comes back. It's, hey, go do this. Okay, I'll consider the best way to do this. I'll also reflect on my own system prompts and see if there's any additional job instructions that I need. And now I, as a digital employee, will go and make some additional choices about how to go and pursue that task, and then come back with something potentially an hour later, could be 10 minutes later, could be 2 minutes later. But I'm going to go make additional choices that weren't just out of that prompt influence. And so you have a whole new batch of users that are these agents that you have to think about from a behavioral perspective, and you have to try and get your hands around them. And all of those systems that you mentioned, so Gemini, Codex, anti-gravity, Zed, any agent that you can think of, they're not all standardized in data. They're not all producing, in some cases, logs even, let alone immutable logs. And so as a security person, one of your first challenges is that none of this data is just handing itself to you. None of this data is coming to you. And in many of your existing tools, you're not going to have the capabilities that you need to get your hands around this data. And so even just knowing something like you talked about, the inventory, where do I have agents, or how can I be sure that I know what the agents are doing, becomes a really monumental task, especially if you have more than one AI tool, which I don't know any business that doesn't. I don't know any business that's like, nope, it's just Claude for us. We don't have anything else, nothing else going on.
Yeah, well, that's actually a really funny. I spoke to I think more and more businesses have this now, and we have it. So like we have an AI experience director, which is, it's a fantastic role, to be honest with you. It sounds great. But
Cruise director, it's very cool.
yeah. So I think the multi-agent like architecture is very much like, hey, I mean, if most people remember this like concept of like, you have to be multi-cloud, like you can't rely on one cloud, like that's insane, like multi-cloud's the thing to do. And there was vendors specifically designed to like multi-cloud architectures. And I think this is very similar in like the AI age, where like everyone's like, you must use multiple agents because that's like the thing to do. I quickly see us getting to a space where you're going to have specialized models, and your businesses will. This is what I said to him yesterday. I think we're in a space now where business it is basically Azure versus AWS. It's OpenAI versus Anthropic, and this is the place that we're in. And I think businesses will fork. So you'll have the more like engineering heavy organizations will go Anthropic, and the more traditional organizations will go OpenAI. That's what I see. That's what I see happening in a very, very near future, and it's just going to be the case. It depends on what the model's being trained on, but then also, I think people have focused so heavily on models, but it's actually not the thing that people care about. It's the spice on top of the models. So the things that Anthropic are doing on outside of the models, and actually what they're messing around with pre the models, is what people are actually interested in. And he was talking about like logging and the information you get from the model providers. That is what people make decisions on. Like if I can easily get like hotel logs out of Anthropic and it's difficult to get it from OpenAI, I know which decision I'm going to make. If I can have like single sign-on, or let's say I can have like distributed like organizational policies, organizations are going to make those decisions. They go, yeah, OpenAI model is great, but I can't do like centralized logging, so I'm going to go that direction. So I do think we're in an interesting race at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. And you're also seeing a real move away from just model performance as the benchmark. Model performance has very menial gains now compared to enterprise features like you're talking about. And also, there is a huge amount of speculation that LLMs won't be the thing for very long for agents, whether it's people talking about world models, or whether it's talking about other types of reasoning models, or whether it's talking about introducing other types of AI applications altogether, like supervised and unsupervised machine learning, and how we can transpose that into autonomous systems. Like, there's so much outside of just LLMs. And I think that's one of the red herrings of this security conversation. We were talking about MCPs actually a little bit earlier on, as kind of one of the first things that hits you in the face when you try to pursue agentic security and you try to understand it. And then the longer you spend in agentic security, you're like, actually, MCPs a thing that I need to know about, but it's not the thing. It's not the biggest deal. And I think it's very similar with LLMs, like LLM performance, LLM explainability. How did the model come up with this? How about the weights? How about the temperature? All of that, unless you're running your own model, isn't actually going to give you that much insight for how agents are going to behave. What's going to give you insight is that behavioral observability, what they're actually doing every day, and then being able to analyze that deeply. But I think it's the same thing with like tools. Like tools are just a means to an end. If MCP tomorrow completely went away and everything transitioned to skills, it's not that big of a change from an agent perspective, although it would feel huge to a security team. But in terms of how the agent is working, it's not that different. It's a place where I can hook in and get context, and skills are faster than MCP. But MCP provide additional benefits. And so it's just thinking about, how do I get my mind into this new era of topics and tools, and out of the things that I always apply it to. So, I understand perimeter controls. I understand EDR. I understand cloud hosted models. I understand LLM data exfiltration. How do I get my hands around the next thing?
Well, I think like you mentioned MCP, and I think MCP was like the 3D. I say it was. This is the problem. This is the problem with this like industry. MCP was. I mean, MCP still is, but in my mind, MCP was like 3D TV. You remember when everyone was like so excited to get a 3D TV?
We're going to get the VR glasses. You're going to be watching it in your homes. You're going to be able to smell it, smell-o-vision.
Yeah, that in my mind, that's what MCP was. Like everyone got really excited about a single thing, and then like 2 months later, like what? Like another thing came. So I totally agree with you. I think the industry is moving so quickly, it's impossible to focus on a singular element and say, hey, I want MCP visibility and security, and this is the only thing I want. Because in 8 weeks' time, you're then going to have to think about, well, how would I do about agent skills? What do I do about tools? What do I do about like web searches and reasoning models? What do I do about agent to agent communication, like on laptop? Like what do I do about all that stuff? Or I was using Claude earlier to develop a Slack scope, like a Slack scope review integration with Jira. it was really interesting because what it wanted to do, I was testing the agent, is it wanted to actually use Chrome. It wanted to use Chrome to like open a tab and actually do some research in a tab. I was like, I didn't even tell you to do that. So I had to go back into the system prompt, so you don't need to use this skill. But like that, I think that is the thing that we need to be very aware of, is that these model providers are releasing features and functionality at greater pace than practitioners or vendors can keep up with. So you have to be in the tools to know what they actually to protect. Like, you got to be using them. So just, I'm not saying using them for like create slop, but just like, just explore them, read the documentation, read the blogs, just see what's what, and also see what's important to you. Because I think as an industry, and we did this as well, is we saw MCPs coming. There was so much chat, so much conversation. I think we got embroiled. We got completely like overwhelmed by it and decided like that's a thing that we need to be focusing on. And that's absolutely fine, but I think you always need to keep your eye outside of that box as well and go, okay, well, I'm going to solve for this specific risk because I know it's a risk now, but like what's the risk in 6 and 9 months, or even 6 and 9 weeks?
Yeah. You are absolutely correct, and I couldn't think of a better way to end this conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I know it will be immensely helpful to people. It's been great to have you, and I am sure that there is so much more to be digging into, but if there's one thing that everybody can do today, it's go and play with the tools, like Ash said. Go and have a play. Go
play with the tools, create your own dashboards, speak to Claude like he's your little buddy, your little PA assistant, like whatever you want to call it. I think the cybersecurity world is incredibly difficult, and this is like the first time, I mentioned this a second ago, right? This is one of the first times in industry where like keeping up is really, really difficult. I'd say if I had a top tip, is it's really easy to decide like my security controls are just going to be like inhibit, block, and that's the easy thing to do. Like if I don't know what it is, just block it. Like I'm scared of it, so I'm just going to block it. What will happen is the business will just work around you. Like that's all that will happen. So the best thing to do is just like jump on the train, see what's going on, get deep into the business. If you've got engineering teams that are using AI, ask them what they're using it for, find out what they're using it for. You don't have to roll out controls to do that. It's just conversations. Those things are free. It just costs time. Find out what people are doing, get deep and involved, and then start building controls about what the business is doing, rather than trying to put a control in place that's probably not even going to last 6 months. We saw that with the wave ones. People spent lots and lots of money on wave one vendors that now are completely irrelevant. So I'd say, go and speak to your business and see what they're doing, and then go speak to your HR, legal, whoever, and say, hey, what should we be concerned about? Like if something was to go wrong, what's a blast radius is this? What's the damage? And then start developing controls in hand with the business. So, and we have our kind of like rhetoric here is like AI enable first, but also you need to enable safely. So that would be my top tip.
I couldn't think of a better way to end. Thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait to speak with you again.
Take care.